will begin in just a moment. So just a few announcements to make sure you all can hear me. Can you please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon located in the GoToWebinar control panel? I'm going to check the sound. Great. Thank you. All attendees will be on mute for the duration of the webinar. However, please feel free to ask questions by entering them in the question field within the control panel. At the end of the webinar, Matt Griffin, Percona's Director of Product Management, will read your questions for our presenter to answer. We will get to as many questions as we can within our time frame. Those that are not addressed will be answered in a follow-up post on Percona's MySQL performance blog. In addition, a recording of this webinar will be available to everyone within 48 hours. Again, thank you for attending today's webinar, Monitoring MySQL with MONyog, presented by Peter Zaitsev, Percona's founder and CEO. Peter, you may now begin.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, today we are going to talk about monitoring MySQL with MONyog. And what we're going to go during the course of this webinar about MONyog basics. We'll also talk about the Percona advisors for MONyog, which is our extension. We'll go through installation feature overview. I will give some practical usage tips and the live demo. And finally, we will have some time to answer questions, as you already heard. So what is MONyog? The MONyog is the monitoring solution for what we can call a MySQL server. And by MySQL, I really not mean just a MySQL by Oracle, but all various variants as well. MONyog can work with Percona server, with Amazon RDS, of MariaDB as well. One of the unique advantages of a MONyog is that it has an agentless design. That means that you don't have to install any agents on your MySQL servers that you're looking to monitor, even to get the access to their operating system data. That can be very good in certain environments. This is also on-premises solution. That means that you can have your own data which can be secured in a way you want, and your data is never going to leave the systems in your control. It's also have been praised by a lot of users with simplicity of both installation and usage, providing a lot of useful information essentially on your fingertips. And I think it's also very important what it both monitors MySQL and operating system, because to really understand what's going on and troubleshoot problems, you can't look at the MySQL alone. You always have to look at what is happening on the operating system level as well. Now, when we talk about the MONyog here, we look at the MONyog really as a platform. The MONyog is a pretty powerful platform which allows you to build more what is called advisors, more features through a very powerful JavaScript language interface. And this is what we at Percona have done. Those alerts or advisors allow us to provide different custom graphs and trends, to give a different custom advice, implement custom alerts and the dashboards. So what are Percona advisors for MONyog? The Percona advisors is something what we customizations which we have created at Percona based on years of experience of our support consulting remote DBA team. I am taking myself a significant part in reviewing those advices and changes we implement. We provide the additional metrics as well as we tailor advice to the modern realities and the best practices. You would find what with a lot of alerts which are available in the stock MONyog, they may refer to all the to advice what was applicable to all the MySQL versions or all the hardware, which is not really as relevant anymore, and we have put a lot of work reviewing those. It is also not something which will be just released once. Percona Advisors for MONyog is something which is available as ever improving part, which will be released with more advice and more features as we find a better way to advise our support customers how to use MySQL to run it more effectively, to be more secure, and so on. What is also valuable here is what having the MONyog and Percona advisors from Percona, which is available with our Gold and Platinum support. You will have a single throat to choke. We would provide you help with installing. Our support team can work with you to see how to interpret and how to use the tools to get most out of your MySQL installations or resolve the problems, and you can channel to us their bug fixes and feature requests, how we can make the tool better, and we will work in a partnership with the MONyog team to improve the tools or fix the bugs as needed. Let's go through their installation process briefly. Now, our customers, when you would log into the customerspercona.com, you will see the download instructions. You essentially would be able to get the license MONyog the software, which you will get the download links as well as the license key. After you install your MONyog, you should which is done on Linux by very simply installing a single RPM commands, or obviously if you happen to run Windows, you can use their Windows installer. Then you should also install their Percona advisors, which is done by downloading and unpack and archive. Now, what is important here is for this installation process to complete successful, you need to have a stock MONyog advisor configuration. If you have done a significant customization, then it may conflict with Percona customizations, and this process may not work. Another important step what you need to do to get it's working is you need to restore the MONyog service so it will reload the updated advisors from the database, which is again done very simply by a single command. And then you have to log into MONyog. The default MySQL 4 is actually 5,555. I have a slip of a finger and one of the fives is missing here. Default username is admin and default password is empty. You can obviously customize a password as well as create different users, where you may want to create some users which will have permissions to view the data but won't be able to change the graphs, right, or configure alerts. This is how you may want to give access to their developers, for example. And also watch out for firewall, because this application runs on non-standard port. It's very possible what their access will be blocked by default, either by the Linux firewall or by some other hardware firewall solution you may be using. The next thing you will need to do after you install the MONyog and Percona advisors for MONyog is you will need to add the servers you want to monitor. Now, what is important to note here, if you'll add in the local server, like a local host, you would likely need to use this 127.0.0.1 instead of localhost, because otherwise MONyog may not find the proper socket file because its location is different in different operating system. You can use this test connection button to validate connection and to ensure things are working properly as expected. Now, MONyog is actually very intelligent and powerful how it can access MySQL servers. You can connect to MySQL directly. You can connect through SSL, which is built in MySQL, and you can also use SSH tunnel, which is very good approach if you want to access the server which is not otherwise accessible directly, and you have to sort of go through jump box to access it. MySQL MONyog is able to use SSL tunnel to use that. As we mentioned, MONyog use agentless design. So when it needs to access some operating system metrics as well as log files, it would use the SSH connection to do that. And this SSH connection is required even if you are working with a local server for many cases. Another thing you may want to consider is the notification settings, where you can configure MONyog to send alerts either by email or send it as an SNMP trap. If you are setting email notification, you also would need to go to the server configuration to configure the mail server, which MONyog will use. Otherwise, it won't be able to send the messages out. This is just a simple example of how those email alerts can look like. In this case, I have put some high load on the server, which triggered the load average to be larger than what is considered their critical value, and we see we get the both alert by email with some explanation about what could that mean in the practical terms. Now, I would also recommend you to go to advanced settings and configure some more settings out there. If you can see here the collection interval by default in MONyog is 5 minutes. In a lot of cases, especially for troubleshooting purposes, you want data to be refreshed more regularly, and I would enable collection interval of 1 minute by default. When it comes to data retention, you can configure a value which is the most relevant for you. And generally, the more database service you have and the less powerful system you use for MONyog itself, the less data retention you should have. MONyog stores data in its local SQLite database, and so obviously if you have a very large database which doesn't fit in memory well, then you can have a performance degrade. So that's just what I spoke about. Another thing you want to configure here is the log files. Again, these are won't be configured for you by default, but it's a very valuable to configure the tool, so it can both access the error log file, so it can alert you if there is any new error messages appear there, as well as the MySQL slow query log file, so you can use the tool to analyze the slow queries as they're being reported in the slow query log. Another advanced configuration tool is something which is called a Sniffer. What a Sniffer allows you to track the queries or when server is running and store them as a history, so you would know what queries have been active at a different period of time. At this point, you can configure Sniffer to use either Processlist sampling or MySQL See, there is no support of real-time processing of a log file or to support their MySQL 5.6 performance schema at this point. It is a very valuable information, but it can be costly to capture and store because, especially if you have many different queries, storing information about them for a prolonged period of time can take a lot of space in a database. And if you have this feature enabled, you will be able to see some additional information in the Wayback Machine. Finally, you also may want to enable the capture of InnoDB deadlocks, especially if a deadlocks is something which is important for your application. It may cause problems. If you configure capturing of the InnoDB deadlocks, you will be able to see there's my InnoDB deadlocks advisor, which will provide information about their latest detected deadlock. Another thing which you may consider doing in your installation is to enable Linux in the monitors, which is not enabled by default because it requires not only a MySQL but also SSH access configured. But if you do that, you will have a very good information coming from the operating system level as well as their MySQL metrics. Okay, now let me go through the most important features of the MONyog. First is a dashboard, which I think is their perhaps the most commonly used feature you will have. We have created a very custom dashboard in the Percona Advisor for MONyog, which shows what we think are the most important data points, such as you can see here the statements, both for reads and writes with MySQL is running over time, as well as the access to their InnoDB tables. So you can see how many rows are being traversed through the time. This is very good to see things like increased amount of full table scans or some other things that will instantly show the change in the graph, as well as some more. I just couldn't fit all the dashboard to the screen. Now, what you can see here is what you can also see multiple servers side by side in a dashboard, which I think is very powerful, especially if you have multiple servers with similar purposes, so you can compare how they operate side by side and see if there's any unexpected differences, as well as simply provides a tool for the DBA to have multiple servers at a glance. The other feature what the MONyog has is the real-time monitoring. The real-time monitor allows you to, it works even if you don't have a Sniffer feature enabled. It allows you to start a monitor and it will pull a process list and capture the queries which have been running. For which the data will be aggregated by query pattern, by tables which have most accesses, use database, users, and so on and so forth. It also can provide us information about the logs from InnoDB information schema tables. I would note though, this feature as well as a sniffing feature I mentioned, then using show process list, you have to be very careful because a lot of tiny queries may be completely invisible in the show process list because they take too little time to really be captured. So you have to take the information which is provided from this method with a grain of salt. Here is an example of how the real-time view may look like. As you see, we are seeing a number of queries which are being constantly aggregated. We can see their total average and max execution time for a given query pattern. We can see number of queries run, and we can also see the first scene and last scene, so you can see wherever this query is running commonly, or maybe it was just run only once, and then you can find out from the time it was where it's part of some of your Chrome job or something like that. The process list, unlike their real-time analysis, look at the current process list, right? So it will refresh all the time with a fresh queries, which happens by default every single second. And you can also look at the several servers on the single page, looking at the few show process list at the time at glance. Show process list also provides some of interesting features. First, as you can see here, some entries can be colored, right? If something is taken more than specified amount of seconds, it will be colored as yellow or red, so you can pay attention to their slow queries or connections which have been idle for a long time. You can also use explain to understand why some slow queries are so slow, or kill running queries if there are some queries taking too much time or which shouldn't have run on the server. Now, it's worth to note the explain which you have here, it's used as the conventional explain statement. It's not the explain plan which is available for currently running queries as their current beta versions of MySQL 5.7 and MariaDB support. So, so the plan you will get may not be exactly the same as the query which is running. You'll also we also have a feature for monitoring replication, which is quite basic, but gives you the information about health of replication on your slave servers. You can see the configuration, what is the master host for different slaves, as well as you can see what is the seconds behind masters, so you can understand if masters are lagging or not. And this information is also refreshed in the real time by default every 5 seconds. The next feature is the query analyzer. What query analyzer is, it can analyze the query similar to the what the real-time feature provides by looking at the MySQL logs or Sniffer, which means either sample process list or MySQL proxy based data. If you analyze logs, it by default will analyze only about 1 last megabyte of slow query log file, which may not cover long enough interval on a busy servers. If you want to look at the more data, you can do that by going to change filter, and you can specify the range of time you want to analyze. You can also analyze, for example, first 10 megabytes of a log file or last 10 megabytes, which is quite flexible. You can also filter to analyze queries by some specific user, for example, if you need something more advanced. When you get a report, you will see something like this, which shows us a query percentage, or in terms of occurrence. We'll also see their information about the row sent, rows examined, and the query execution time, as well as when this query was first and last seen in their query part. Now, what you will see here in this case is the queries will be shown you having the question marks instead of a constants, which means you cannot really jump to run explain in the same queries. You'll have to use other methods to find the example for that specific query if you need to do that. The next very interesting feature is looking at the server configuration. The server configuration provides us essentially two valuable features. First, you can compare servers side by side. I mean, there have been many instances when we would find out what there are two servers which behaving somewhat differently, and we don't really know why. One of the best things to do in this case is to use this tool to compare if server configurations is the same. And you will see the changed values in bold, or you can also select to only see the differences between two servers you're comparing. You can also compare the server compared to their to the previous configuration. So in this case, we have a server which had one of the changes which was changed. So in this case, when we started the monitoring of the server in the early March, the value was for the setting 16 megabytes, and then on Tuesday in the morning, right about 6 o'clock in the morning, their value of this variable was increased. We can clearly see what change was done and when it was done, which is very powerful if you need to track down the changes on your servers. The next important feature is providing the information about their disk usage. And by the disk usage, we mean the disk usage by database tables. This is important. We are not going to get information about the database, about the space usage by the log files, binary logs, or something else, only by the database table. This information then comes from the information schema, and if you don't have InnoDB stats on metadata disabled, and if you have a lot of tables, it can be slow. So before using that feature, make sure that option is disabled, which is by default in MySQL 5.6, and it needs a manual change in the previous version. What it will provide you is information on the total database usage, both data size and index size, and then you will be able to drill down on the MySQL instance to see the different size for their databases, as well as different tables for specified database. In this case, we can see that as a test server which is running sysbench, so it's have just one very small table. Another feature and the concept you have to know in the MONyog is the events. Events is something which advisors report. It's something like their the alerts, right? But different in a sense what when the advisor becomes worrying or critical, then alert is raised and email may be sent if configured. And then also then advisor goes from worrying or critical level back to what's called stable. Another event will be generated. By looking at those events, you will be able to see an exact times when different incidents have happened, which is very valuable, right? And then situation have been restored. Now, what you can also have is you can close some of the alerts if you want to acknowledge them, or if you find some of the alerts are not really relevant for your system. And in this case, where MONyog will not bug you anymore reporting those alerts either by email or in the interface. Finally, well, almost finally, their interesting feature what MONyog has is called Wayback Machine. What Wayback Machine allows is to track you what is happening with server through the time. And it has information about the threads connected, about queries, if you have a Sniffer feature enabled, status counters, and changes to the global variables. You can use their select different intervals to zoom in to see what has been happening in that specific interval in terms of queries, changes to global variables, and so on. Here is the example what Wayback Machine will tell us about the queries. In this case, it says it has detected one query only for this period of time. Well, in reality, there are thousands of more of a quick queries have passed through, but they haven't been seen. Why? Because they're using show process list for sampling the data in this case, which is unable to catch very small queries effectively. If you need this to catch all your queries, then the only way in MONyog to do that right now is to use their MySQL proxy. You'll be also able to see the status variables. Again, we can see for this period of time changes to all the status variables. So you can use that for some advanced analysis to say, oh, well, that's strange that you have increased amount of InnoDB deadlocks, right, for example, or something else which may be relevant for troubleshooting. Now, the biggest and most important functionality, I would say, is their monitor. The monitors, or advisors, as I also refer to them, essentially show you the current state in the system. They provide information available for training and analysis, as well as actionable advice and description of what does this data mean. They also can be configured to generate alerts when certain conditions are met. And let me show a few of them. This is how their monitors look, right, in general. You can see as a general info, we show essentially overview what you have: a server at the local host which is running MySQL 5.6.13. It was running for 11 days. It's available, and so on and so forth, right? Some basic information. Now, if you look at this data, you can see their information in MONyog is available through 3 different time frames. First of all is what is called current. It is the information from a MySQL start or flash status, which is would report you either total values or per second values depending on the configuration. You can also look at the delta, which shows information for a single data capture interval. So if you specify the delta value for 1 minute data capture interval, we'll see the changes to values for last minute. And then there is also the most powerful view, which is called history, which allows us to see the information for selected period of time and then group it in various ways. When you go to this history, you will be able to specify both a time frame as well as a grouping interval. So in this case, for example, I've been looking at the traffic to group by that by the hour, and we can see what at different times of the day the MySQL has been sending back to the client different traffic. This is the table view which I show here, and then MONyog also have their table view available. Another feature which MONyog provides is what you can see the history for last several data captures through a graph. Essentially, almost on any metrics, you can click at the small graph icon to see the data capture for that variable. What is valuable about this functionality is what the graph can be refreshed in the real time, so you can integrate that in your dashboard or use some other way where you want to see information being changed in the real time. As I mentioned, advisors, they provide a lot of description, advice, and also further reading information. And this is something which we put a lot of work in the Percona Advisor customization. So for example, when we look about the slow logs and wherever enabled, you can read the information about what slow logs are, how to, like why you may want to enable them, as well as we provide the relevant information such as links to a MySQL manual, as well as a number of articles at the MySQL performance blog, which is worth reading as it pertains to the MySQL slow query logs. It's also worth to note what you can really define your own advisors and customize which you want, and this done with a rather simple language of JavaScript. Even if you don't know JavaScript well, you can probably figure out pretty quickly with some copy-paste. So in this case, we are looking at a function which returns us amount of selects which server has been running. Well, some of you may know what the number of selects or what MySQL reports is not really total number of selects the server has received. There is another way, other kind of selects which are not going to be reported in the COM selects. These are selects which a query hits because they're not executed, right? They don't really COM select commands. And in this case, what we're doing is we're computing total number of selects by essentially adding the number of COM select to the number of query cache hits to get the total number of select queries which MySQL instance has handled. And you can use this powerful feature to do whatever math you want. For example, if you want to say, hey, how much disk I/O per query I'm doing, well, then you can create their appropriate advisor where we you just perform the division math. You can also do what is called the advanced configuration, where there are more options for you available to customize the alert. And I think the most valuable features here are the warning critical levels. For example, in this case, we are looking at the alert for CPU usage, which says, hey, if CPU usage is over 70% in average over period of time, right, then it's will be warning. If it's more than 80%, it's critical. In your case, you can specify the values which make sense for your application. What you can also do in this advanced customization is customize the notification settings. For example, you may want to have some additional email addresses, some specific alerts send email to. For example, if you may select that if MySQL goes down, you need to notify much more broad team than the single DBA which may be getting majority of your other alerts. You can do that in this advanced customization settings too. Now let me talk about some practical usage tips which you want to know. For your day-to-day operations, you should consider enabling email alerts for what is important for your application. I would expect you may find there are some changes needed to default. You may select to get some alerts which are not sent to email by default, or you may want to disable some of the alerts which are not relevant for your application. The dashboard provides a great overview for general server health and load, right? This is something you can run in the background to keep the tab open, which you can, in your browser, you can switch that quickly if you ever want to get a glance view of the server health. The process list can be very valuable to provide you visually what is going on. Right, you will see if there is too many active queries, or you will see a lot of queries which are seen as red because they are running for too long, and you can be able to get that visually. What to do if something goes wrong and for the troubleshooting? Well, I believe when something goes wrong with your MySQL, let's say MySQL becomes unusually slow, then you will likely to see the server load to change. even if it will start handling less statements or process more rows because query plan is going to change. Something is almost always changing in this case. And you can again start with a dashboard or which will show you some changes compared to previous period of time, or look at the process list to find if it's something weird looking, right? When you normally see only 1 or 2 queries running, and now you can see 200 queries running at the same time, which will instantly give you the idea of what is going wrong. You can also look at the Linux set of advisors to see the load on database level. Is your CPU overloaded? You may be doing too much disk I/O, or maybe the system is swapping. All that information is available in the Linux section. And I also would suggest to check out the Wayback Machine to see the changes to the query pattern. Maybe you have some new queries discovered, or some old queries for some reason take a lot longer time, right? Which will all give you ideas what can be wrong. And again, another important thing to check is the server config, because there are many cases when some unexpected change to the configuration, to the server configuration, which can both happen explicitly, or maybe it happens due to upgrade to the new MySQL version, which has different defaults. It can impact performance in certain cases, and server config will help you to understand what is going on. So now I have a few minutes, and I can show you the demo of the tool in action, and then we'll go for questions. Okay, so what we see here first is the dashboard, and you can see this is just my local server which is running the sysbench, and what we see by default is information on the statements, right, which is both all the statements, as well as we can see our read load, right, and write load separately. It is just benchmark running, so you can see the graph is almost flat. Now, what you can already find interesting here, which is what if you look at the InnoDB data activities, what it's not really uniform, right? You can see what InnoDB shows as spikes every few minutes when it flashes more data than normally, which is how their checkpointing works, right? I find that's pretty interesting. What when they put the logically uniform load on the server, we still see it's very different, and that also triggers as their I wait, right? Wait on the flash to the server in our database server usage. Now, where we can also check out is the process list. What I wanted to show you here is what this is the benchmark, which actually runs about 1,000 queries, very small and simple queries, as sysbench does a second. But you can see we cannot see any queries in the show process list, right? We only see the connections which are sleeping for a very short period of time. This is what often happens with a show process list, and that's why this information is not very reliable. Now we can go to the monitor section, which I spoke a lot, and check out various settings. We can see on the Linux settings our usage is quite normal. What I find quite interesting feature here is what we can get the memory sizes used by MySQL. You can see both the resident set size as well as the total virtual memory size used by MySQL, which you want to watch to ensure you are not over provisioning memory for MySQL, as well as information for size usage. We can also look at the information about the reads and writes from device. Now, when I spoke about the trending, we can click on one of those values, and you will see their information about the data capture. Right, the values will refresh here by approximately every minute, but I'm not going to wait for that because we have a little time before we should go to questions. The other what should I also show? Oh, the other feature I wanted to show is this little query analyzer. As I mentioned, it's configured to analyze the data from the slow query log, which I can analyze, and you can see here it goes pretty quickly, and I can see, well, pretty traditional sysbench queries which are being reported. If I want to configure something else, I can say, hey, instead of analyzing data for last 1 megabyte, I can analyze, let's say, 10 megabytes, or I can specify a different period, like 1 hour, half an hour, or filter by host, by users, or something else. Now, I would be careful in this case not to use a feature, not to disable replace and literals from the query, because in this case the system will look at the all distant query query samples and not merge them to give the query types, and that often produces a huge table which is not very helpful. Another feature I showed briefly would be their disk info. This is being calculated in the real time as we ask that, and we can see that the total disk size on the local host is about 200 megs, and then I can go to a different to see the space used by different database, and then if a table has if a database has multiple tables, I can look at usage by the different tables, like right here. Okay, so I think that's a good time for us to transition to questions at this point. And if you guys have any questions, which will I'll keep the demo running so we can I can show you some answers for the questions if that's needed.
Thanks, Peter. Can you hear me okay, Peter? Peter, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah,
cool.
we can hear you okay.
Great, okay. So got a bunch of questions from the audience, and we'll just jump right in. Can alerts be programmed to be emailed to selected recipients based on the text in the result? If not, can a script be written on our side to do that?
Yes, well, so can alerts be configured? Well, at this point, you can configure different alerts, right? In this way. Now, if you want different alerts based on the alert result to be sent to different users, what I would suggest is to essentially create the different different alerts for that which will be subscribed to the different groups. Let me show you customization. Probably that will be helpful. This is like some random advisor pick which you can customize, and then if you go to their advanced settings here, we will see mail too, right? We can specify different users, right? Now you can see what you can also specify the JavaScript functions here, which will return the list of email addresses to send. And what that provides is a number of features. You can, for example, use that to implement the scheduling, right? Let's say that JavaScript function may refer to send to different people depending on the time zone, right, or whoever on call is. And yes, in that function, you can also refer to the advisor text, right, to certain conditions, right, to send different people different alerts.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can you elaborate on the explain not being the same as in MySQL 5.7?
Oh, yes. So there is an interesting problem right here. So sometimes when the query is running, it is taking a long time exactly because that specific query instance has chosen some strange plan to execute. It's using the different indexes than common queries and so on and so forth, right? So when you take the text of that query and when you run it, explain to that, you may get the different execution plan, right? So you may have a query which takes, for example, an hour and show process list, but if you run that separately or run explain to that, you'll have it as a very quick query. So in MySQL 5.7 and in MariaDB, there is a new feature which allows you to get an explain for running query, which gives us explain exactly as that query is being run, not running explain alongside, which gives us a more accurate information about running queries.
Okay, great. Thank you. You mentioned Percona advisors at the beginning of your presentation. How are Percona advisors different than MONyog's advisors?
Yeah, so what if you look at the Percona advisors is what we have changed or added number of advisors to the MONyog advisors, right? So you wouldn't see separate Percona advisors here. Simply when you install Percona advisors, the dashboard configurations and the set of advisors will be different.
Okay. Can the server configuration comparison be scheduled to run on a frequency to ensure compliance automatically over time?
Well, in the MONyog, the server configuration is it's not triggered to run automatic. There is some manual process, right? You would go through. If you need to compare configuration between server automatically, what you often have is use the tool from Percona toolkit to compare the configuration between multiple servers and alert if there is any differences.
Okay. Can the we saw the disk usage report that you showed in MonYog. Can the disk usage be aggregated across MySQL servers for a roll-up report?
No, so in this case, the disk usage is available right on the single server. We cannot, if there is multiple servers, you obviously would see how much data is available on each of them, but you won't be able to, let's say, summarize the size of a given database on all the servers. That's not a feature that's just currently available.
Okay, thank you. For the query analyzer, are stored procedure calls listed? And if so, do they show up as just the call, or do the individual queries that make up the stored procedure show up?
Well, that is a great question, right? And in this case, the answer is it depends on what I'm using as a data source, right? If you're using slow query log, then in this case the answer will depend on what server you're using. In Percona server, we expand the stored procedure, so you will be able to see their statements inside the store procedures. And if you're just running stock MySQL, you will see only the calls to store procedures, not individual statements.
Okay. I got another question about Percona advisors. Can the Percona advisors be added to an existing MonYog instance? Ours has been running for about a year, and I don't want to lose the data or configuration settings.
Yes, well, in this case, the question is wherever you have done any significant changes, right, to your advisors, right? Or if you're running stock advisors which come with a MONyog. If it is if it has a lot of data, but the advisors in MONyog haven't been modified, then yes, you can do that. And if you have any problems installing that, then our support team would be happy to help you. In such advanced cases, I would also recommend to back up their MONyog database before installing. So if something goes wrong, you will be able to recover that. And again, our team will be happy to advise you about how to back up their MONyog configuration.
Okay. Does MONyog support clusters?
Yes, so MONyog will both support MySQL cluster and the Percona XDB cluster and other Galera-based technology. However, in this case, it will do reporting on the node by node in the cluster, not providing the overall overview for the whole cluster. If you're looking for overall cluster view for Percona XDB cluster, you can also check out their cluster control solution, which is available also through to support customers at Percona with Percona XDB cluster option.
Thank you. If anyone has any more questions, keep on sending them in. We've got a few more questions to get to, though. Can MONyog detect long-running transactions using the NODB status? Some long transactions use many commands that don't show up as running long in the process list, hence the need to examine NODB status.
Well, I think that is a great idea. I don't think there is an advisor currently which is set up for that, but there is a way to query their information schema tables, which is also where that information prevents and you can presence, and you can implement the current alerts. And I think that's something we should consider for Percona Advisors feature. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Can we monitor for the number of queries per second?
Well, yes, you can monitor their number of queries per second. There is a alert which shows us number of queries which are currently running, and you can configure that to send the alerts if a number exceeds certain threshold. So you can configure that alert if you want to.
Okay, and I think we have time just for a couple more questions. Again, if anyone has any questions, please type them into the GoToWebinar application. Is there a way to monitor for average query length or average session length?
No, average query length, and as I understand, that is where you mean the query execution time, right, or the transaction time. Well, that is a tricky question. To do that right now, you would need to either use most recent MySQL with performance schema, or analyze the log. And now that's not currently being monitored.
Okay, thanks. We do have some more questions that we just don't have time to get to at the moment. But any questions that we didn't get to, we will answer in a follow-up blog post on the MySQL Performance blog. So, Christy, I will hand it to you, and Peter, if you could jump back to your presentation for the final slide about Percona Live.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for reminders, so we don't get stuck with a demo. So hope everybody can see our presentation slide, and for the webinar attendees here, we have a special discount code for 15% off registration at Percona Live conference. I'm sure you guys know all about it, but probably not all, because we just made it even better with adding the free open source appreciation day on March 31st, and this comes with 2 events to choose from: the CentOS Dojo, and this is recommended if you're interested in running MySQL on Linux, and CentOS is obviously one of the very popular choices for MySQL, as well as OpenStack today, where we talk all about using MySQL with OpenStack. And if you're interested about a cloud, the OpenStack is a very big thing in the modern cloud development. So these are kind of two great events we're very happy we can bring in.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, Matt, and of course, thank you to all our attendees. Be sure to take advantage of all the amazing educational opportunities by registering for Percona Live and our Open Source Appreciation Day. So again, that's right around the corner, starting Monday, March 31st, going through Friday, April 4th. Also, you can join us for next week's webinar called 7 Key MySQL Clustering Technologies to Consider, featuring Matt Aslett from 451 Research and, of course, our very own founder and CEO, Peter Zaitsev. Resources are always available to you on the Percona website and our MySQL performance blog. Again, thank you. Our webinar will now end.